Hey guys, what's going on? James here. In this video today, I wanted to take a look at an interesting article that is written on NFL.com, and it is written by Nick Shook of Around the NFL. It is the NFL Quarterback Index, where Shook goes in every single week and ranks the top 32 starting quarterbacks in the league. Now, I definitely thought it would be interesting to see where Baker Mayfield ranks in week number 1 and where he ranks now in week number 11. Thought it would be a fun exercise to see where the national media, or at least a member of the national media, Nick Shook, has Baker Mayfield out right now. And I wanted to make a video and giving my thoughts and opinions on the ranking. Am I going to agree with it? Am I going to disagree with it? Are you guys going to agree or disagree with it? I don't know, but it should be a pretty fun time to dive into it together. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into it. I think it's important to start with the expectations that Baker Mayfield had at the beginning of the year, which I think a lot of people can admit was not great. Baker Mayfield, I don't think, was going to be considered a horrible, downright awful, worst quarterback in the league guy, but I don't think he was going to be listed as a overall pretty efficient, pretty productive quarterback either, which is what he has been so far for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that is reflected here in the week 1 ranking. By the way, Aaron Rodgers coming in at number 6. He only lasted 4 plays in the NFL season, which is kind of wild. But like Derek Carr at 16, Daniel Jones, he's out for the year. That just goes to show how much has changed this year, folks. It's wild, wild times. But you got to go all the way down to number 25 was where Baker Mayfield was ranked in the week number 1 rankings. I'm not going to read the paragraphs here. You guys can definitely pause the video and read them if you want. But essentially it talks about how Baker Mayfield obviously had a rough calendar year before joining the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He had been with the Carolina Panthers. It didn't go well. He joined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and had a competition with Kyle Trask. He ended up winning, but expectations were not certainly high in the post-Brady era, which we've talked about a lot here on the channel with Baker Mayfield. But point being is that I just don't have much reason to think he'll become a game-changing quarterback for the Buccaneers, and I think that was fair to have those expectations in the beginning of the year. Right? Because quite frankly, Baker Mayfield, was coming off of a down year. You take a look at the stats. He did not do a lot of good things until he got to the LA Rams. It was just not a good situation in Carolina either, right? And some of the guys that were ranked above Baker Mayfield at the time, you have guys like Ryan Tannehill, you have Kenny Pickett who was there, Jimmy Garoppolo, Mac Jones, Matthew Stafford, Justin Fields, Deshaun Watson was above him, you have Daniel Jones who was above him at the time, you have Derek Carr who came in at number 16, man, Brock Purdy at 15, right? That just goes to show the level of really confidence that was in Baker Mayfield around the league at the time, and it is an interesting thing to note there. Baker Mayfield was ranked number 25. Then you go into week 11, and this is where some things get interesting, right? How different things change in just a 2.5 months in the NFL. You take a look at some of the more surprising names, like Tua T's the 3rd best quarterback in the league right now. Dak Prescott shot his way up to number 4. CJ Stroud went from being below Baker. He was number 28. My man is now number 5. Shout out to CJ Stroud. Lamar Jackson is still up there. You still have like a lot of familiar guys up there in the top 10. Joe Burrow. Jared Goff made his way up to number 8. Shout out Jared Goff. He has had a pretty good year as well. Keep on going down. Herbert coming in at number 9. He's in a really good year. Trevor Lawrence still at number 10. And we'll definitely talk about that situation here in a moment. Matthew Stafford at number 11 from being not ranked. That's because Stafford's been dealing with some injuries on and off, and it's interesting. Josh Allen coming in at number 12. He's had a bit of an up and down year. Sam Howell, by the way, folks, where was he? He was 31, and my guy is now number 13, I believe, according to the list. So shout out to Sam Howell. He's had a really, really good year, all things considered. Baker Mayfield comes in at number 14. So Baker Mayfield went from being 25th to 14. He's moved up 11 spots? Yes, he's moved up 11 spots during 2.5 months, during the first 11 weeks of the NFL. You take a look at his stats: 2,143 passing yards, 14 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He, also has 4 fumbles as well. I don't think he's only lost maybe one of them, I think. But it is definitely interesting, and you guys again can pause this if you want to as well to get a read of it. But I very much enjoyed watching him try to will the Bucs to victory. He's earned his place in the quarterback index. You guys can read it right here. I think that this is a decent ranking for Baker. I'm not going to go as far as to say that Baker is a top 10 quarterback, but the fact that Baker is a top half quarterback right now, according to Nick Shook, I think speaks to the levels of this season that Baker Mayfield is having, right? He went from being the 25th ranked quarterback in week 1 all the way up to number 14. That's very notable, right? And we've had a lot of different things happen, and I do want to talk about some of the guys that are surrounding Baker Mayfield right now. Like Sam Howell, him being above Baker, I think is fine right now, all things considered. Josh Allen, that makes sense. Where I think it gets interesting is Stafford. That one is iffy. Trevor Lawrence is definitely iffy. Trevor Lawrence has had definitely a down year, all things considered, right? I wouldn't put Trevor Lawrence in the top 10 personally. I probably would put him much lower. Similar things can be said for Matthew Stafford, who I feel like has definitely had a bit of a down year as well. I'm not saying that Baker Mayfield would necessarily. I mean, yeah, at this point, I would put Baker Mayfield above those guys. I was going to misspeak there. Does that mean he moves to number 12? No, not necessarily. I think whenever you take a look at this list as well, Brock Purdy, I would probably put above Baker Mayfield, so that puts him at 13 at that point. Russell Wilson, at this point, I would probably put him above Baker Mayfield. That would put him still at 14. After that, I do think it is pretty fair, all things considered. Shout out Josh Dobbs, by the way. He was 32nd whenever this index started in week 1, and now my man is at 19. Derek Carr dropped down to 20, by the way. Kenny Pickett's down at 21. There really isn't, Kyler Murray coming in at 22. There really isn't any other quarterbacks that I would put above Baker besides Brock Purdy and the Brock Purdy and Russell Wilson. Those would be the two that I would definitely debate. Point being, though, is that Baker Mayfield is playing like a top half quarterback in the league this year, folks. I think that you see it in the stats. You see it now in national media recognition also. And it is important to take a look at this and just look at some of the other quarterbacks in the league, right? Like, yes, there are some people where it's like, okay, right now as it stands, 11 weeks into the year, who would you rather have? Would you rather have Matthew Stafford, or would you have this version of Matthew Stafford in 2023, or would you rather have Baker Mayfield? Would you rather have the 2023 version? I guess like obviously long term you'd probably pick Trevor Lawrence, but it's Trevor Lawrence has had a down year. Matthew Stafford's had a down year. This year Baker is playing like a top half quarterback, right? And I think comparatively, you could move some other guys around. I would probably put Baker above Trevor Lawrence and Matthew Stafford, which would put him at 12, but then he gets knocked back down to 14. So I feel like 14 is a good spot. There's just some other guys on this list that I would move around. But point being is this guy's like, a lot has changed with the quarterbacks this year, all things considered. Like Josh Dobbs went from being the backup quarterback to the Cleveland Browns to now the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings after he was the starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals for the first half of the year. So that is wild. Derek Carr has had a ton of injuries. Kenny Pickett hasn't been great this year. Kyler Murray just jumped back into the fold. Anthony Richardson is out for the year. You have Zach Wilson filling in for Aaron Rodgers this year, who's, in my opinion, out for the year. Ryan Tannehill got benched for Will Levis. Aiden O'Connell is in for Jimmy Garoppolo, who got benched. Taylor Heineke is in now for Desmond Ridder, who got benched. Mac Jones has been benched multiple times. Tyson Bagent is in for Justin Fields, who's been hurt this year. Bryce Young has been doing, Bryce Young things. And then Tommy freaking DeVito's in here because Daniel Jones is out for the year, right? So, like, but even with Daniel Jones, even with, who was not playing good this year, even with Justin Fields, who has not been playing great this year, Mac Jones, that one makes sense, even with Desmond Ridder, who has not been playing great this year, Jimmy Garoppolo, who has not been playing great this year, Ryan Tannehill, who's not been playing great this year. I don't think that changes much. Maybe, not even maybe, if Aaron Rodgers was in, you'd probably knock Baker down one more spot to 15. If Anthony Richardson was in, maybe you knock him down to 16, but that's a pretty big maybe, in my opinion. If Kirk Cousins was in there, you would probably knock him down another spot to 17. Point being, though, is that Baker is a guy that's ranging from 14 to 17 right now, which I feel like is a pretty big improvement based on what we have seen from week 1 expectations, where my man was ranked the 25th quarterback in this league. Now he's 14th. And part of that is because of other guys around the league getting hurt. Part of that is because of the Baker Mayfield just having a really good season beyond expectations. Overall, I feel like it is a fine ranking, and I just wanted to showcase that Baker Mayfield has been playing pretty good this year. And I think that it is definitely something worth talking about. It is something worth comparing to other quarterbacks in the league. Right now, Baker Mayfield compares pretty well. He's a top half quarterback in this league, and he has certainly been playing like it. But what do you guys think about this ranking? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. I would love to hear it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed. And as always, folks, I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.